The Professors is brought to you by Blackborder.com, an MTG site that delves heavily into every format of Magic, drafting with the pros, constructed testing, and deck design with the high-level mages, some of the best stories of the game, as well as Rise of the Eldrazi boxes, cases, intro packs, and more. So support the show and go check out Blackborder.com today. Hello everybody and welcome to yet another episode of The Professors. This week the pre-releases are underway, so we'll take a look at the last week of spoilers and delve into the dynamic strategies of the Arising Limited format. So let's draw. Once again, I have to commend Wizards for their ingenious art style, story composition through this art, and all-around flavor. It's the tastiest and best illustrated art of any set I've seen, and I say this even despite the fact that many of these cards feature these semi-non-humanoid creatures. The Eldrazi are awkward yet different looking, with tentacles in otherwise unmentionable places, Hedron spikes clamped to their heads, and exoskeleton molds that look like they were rejected Hasbro toys, and yet their purple and pink coloring and abstractness make them awesome. Flavorfully, I'm really confused as to how the Eldrazi spawn have zero power, being that they're like 5 feet tall, though I guess they could just be made out of jello or something. Anyway, It That Betrays is my favorite non-legendary Eldrazi, and my third favorite overall. It allows you to keep threats on board or start adding lands to your side of the battlefield for a second Eldrazi or X casting cost spell, while being a core gigantic Eldrazi beatdown creature. And while I wouldn't play this guy over Ulamog or Emrakul, I rank him above Kozilek as, even though digging for bigger and badder creatures or extra answers is nice when you can play in constructed, free protective spells like Not of This World, Itba is the active possessive force that Kozilek is not. However, what about an answer for more than one Eldrazi? An old-fashioned Path to Exile or Doomblade is plenty dandy, but against the Eldrazi, Jund, and Control decks, Consuming Vapors works as the almost ridiculous 2-for-1 you've been looking for. While it sucks if your opponent has 0/1 spawns to throw away, against Jund it gains you some much-needed life, and even if it only kills a Sprouting Thrynax and token, that's 4 life to get you to the later game that a deck this card would be in looks to play in. On the other side of the color pie, we see white getting some seriously sick removal. Oust, Puncturing Light, and Smite are all incredibly low-costed, and while I don't think they'll see play over Path to Exile, as all have conditional clauses to play them, all clauses are easy to meet in Standard. Oust is the annoying preventative spell that makes the Sprouting Thrynax that would have been great now, really bad on turn 5, and a lot worse versus your newly landed Baneslayer Angel. Smite may in fact replace Path to Exile when it rotates out, for extreme budget reasons, and as an answer to your opponent's creature that doesn't also allow them to accelerate. The downside, and reason why it's not as good as Path to Exile though, is the fact that you need to have a creature, which makes it less likely that your opponent will be attacking even if this creature is a 1/1 or 2/2 versus their 3/3 or 4/4. This is because the creature works as a foundation ground, a stage setter that no matter how weak is meant to manipulate aspects of the game and be manipulated by them. Also, if you want to block a Metaslayer Angel, you need a creature with flying. Second is the unfortunate prerequisite, which forces the opposing creature to be attacking. Against Lotus Cobra, which already has a toughness of 1 and is unlikely to be attacking, Wall of Reverence, or a creature intended to be played only for a triggered ability like Cunning Sparkmage plus Basilisk Collar, this plan fails. Oh, and Smite also doesn't remove the creature from the game, which further allows unearthed creatures to take advantage when pitted against you and lets your opponent do slightly rogue things like Nature Spiral, the creature you spent so long trying to destroy. But I suppose, in all other cases, you're good. Except when you have to sacrifice your creatures before the Declare blocker step due to the Annihilator ability. Our last white utility card doesn't handle the big bad Eldrazi either, and it still requires the opposing player to have an attacking or blocking creature with power 3 or less. Also, it's 1 extra mana, and thus doesn't rank as a wedge cost removal spell. This is still the most ridiculous for limited though. Here are my rankings for the 3. Speaking of variations of a previously printed card, what's up with these red burn spells? Having Lightning Bolts and Tarfire and then Lightning Bolt and Burst Lightning was ridiculous enough and gave red probably the best form of damage and removal combined in the game. But now Searing Blaze has entered the format and teamed up with Lightning Bolt, Lightning Helix, Shard Volley, and friends to form the burn in Brozic Boros, but now it's getting a little ridiculous. Sure, you never had ridiculous card advantage in red, but Surreal Memoir plus Forked Bolt plus Flame Slash plus Lightning Bolt plus Burst Lightning plus Searing Blaze plus Earthquake or whatever makes doming your opponent not only deceptively simple but makes your victory incredibly luck-based, Even so, do you think Mono Red can't survive in this format with all the hate? Tell that to people like Ben Lundquist at Pro Tour San Diego. Core Firewalker is a ridiculous repellent and Celestial Purge is nice, but unstable footing counters the Firewalker, and even if they expected that, you can still hit them for 5 later on. And, well, Celestial Purge isn't so good when you can blindly charge through the game without any permanence. Oh, and if they do have too many creatures and no Celestial Purges, I play triple Stone Idol Trap. With the spoiler completed, let's take a look at my ideal Mono Red list. Now, the question is, will Lightning Bolt be reprinted in Magic 2011? Or will this new standard of burn and necessity for higher creature toughness leave? Well, it is a decision that will twist the usability of red burn dramatically. Not because all the other burn is that much crappier, though it is worse, but because its basis of the last half-dozen burn spells we've seen this past year and creature to power toughness ratios have gone up based around this one card. However, now, with alternatives, we can remove Lightning Bolt or Path to Exile from standard because the remaining options, while not as good as these stage setters, are better in specific situations and under set conditions. Now, how does this apply to the current STDs or standard trade-off developments of counterspells? Well, our current base for the blue counterspell here is Cancel. From there we branch out to Flash Freeze, Negate, and Essence Scatter. The latter three are technically better because they supply the same effect, which is countering of a spell, and cost 1 blue less mana. However, for balance purposes, they therefore need to have a prerequisite, so they do. The question now is, can we alter this standard of play? Print a 2-mana blue counterspell with no condition? The answer, of course, is yes. But like Path to Exile was to Condemn, Deprive needs to have an additional cost of bouncing one of your lands and further restrictive mana cost of 2 blue. So it does. But it counters a spell. And thus, Deprive will be the new standard for counterspells, at least until Counterspell gets reprinted. And what of Blue's ability to win with permanence? Well, it can't have those big muscly creatures, but it can copy the most muscly creatures you might have. As spoiled by Black Border, the guys that are a reason you see a show here every week, even though it is consistently late, have explained why this creature is so good. It lets you copy gigantic creatures without the when this creature enters the battlefield clause, like Phyrexian Dreadnought, and become hasty versions of Baneslayer Angels to finish the game. Mark my words, this card will hit at least the $15 mark, as, even though its Mimic ability is only temporary, he's the crucial difference in speed that a deck like Blue-White Control needs on the offense. You know, that Polymorph gray area everyone's testing with? Will it be playable in this format? I have no doubt it will be. Deprive and See Beyond on top of Jace 2.0 set up Blue's control and card advantage, but the question is, what other color or colors will the Polymorph deck play? On the white side, you get Thopter Foundry, Gideon Jura, or Elspeth Night Sirens, and Martial Coup as token generators and control cards like Path to Exile, as well as the ability to have a transformational sideboard that sides out Polymorph and the big creatures for Baneslayer Angel and Wall of Reverence. On the red side, you get Dragon Fodder, Goblin Assault, plus all the burn you want, as well as double negative against Cascade. On the green side, you get Growth Spasm, Colony Garden, Garruk Wildspeaker, and Explore to accelerate your Polymorph play. Green and blue together seem like the most exciting combination of this deck, so here's my projected green-blue list. As for this Eldrazi deck I've talked about previously, and with the full set spoiled, what can we expect it to contain? Well, the answer is, I don't think we saw all the support we wanted. I had hoped for a non-conditional Brood Birthing, a Rapacious One-esque creature at 4 or 5, and a Spawning Breath for 1 mana instead of 2. However, is it possible in a specific metagame? Of course. But you're playing a rogue deck whose only hope is to control the variables presented to you by the metagame. Right now, I'd expect a red-green or Naya-colored list to make an impact, but I'm just not sure what would make it into the deck. Do you play 4 copies of Path to Exile or Lightning Bolts? Do you play both? Do you play either? Simple questions like these cannot be answered with such a meta-dependent deck as this, and without any top 8s for statistical analysis. But whatever deck we see, I'm telling you now, it will be epically sweet. Last card of the week, Linvala, Keeper of Silence. This card is ridiculous. As a 3/4 for 4, you're already out of Lightning Bolt range, and while playing Flame Slash against you is nice, it's not as good for the red deck when you have 12 2/2s charging at them. And half of them have protection from red. All activated abilities, aka all creature abilities with colons, are disabled. That includes any level up shenanigans on the other side of the table, tap abilities, sacrifice abilities, including those of the Eldrazi spawn, and all tap for mana abilities, annihilated, if you will. At least until they terminate the predestined target of the angel anyway. For White Weenie, this still means you win though, as your Student of Warfare is still ready to swing the next turn for 8 damage. Finally, to summarize the sealed format thus far from this set, it's incredibly skill intensive, and yet the games unfold like this. First 5 turns, nothing happens. 6th turn, something big happens for somebody, and the game ends on turn 8 like it's supposed to. Just in a more one-sided manner than usual. We'll take a look at the standard and draft in 2 weeks after next week's pre-release show. But until then, let me know your pre-release experiences, and signing off, this is Anthony Palmerio, on behalf of the Professors. We're tapped out for now, but we'll untap soon.